Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something I bet we're all pretty familiar with.
Oh, absolutely. The age-old struggle.
Yeah, work-life balance. Or, maybe more like work-life integration these days.
Right.
Trying to make all the pieces fit,
All
right?
right. It's definitely a puzzle, that's for sure.
Especially for those of us, who are trying to build a career but also like have a family life, passions, maybe even like sleep sometime.
It's a lot to juggle. And it's interesting. So we went through a ton of research, articles, even some interviews for this deep dive. And there's just so much out there.
Seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's got advice, right? But what we really wanted to get at was, like, what's the real impact of all this? Not just on us as individuals, but on our families too.
Yeah, I think that's key because, we can talk about tips and tricks all day long, but if we don't understand the actual consequences of imbalance.
Right. Like, why even bother trying to fix it?
Exactly, and the research is pretty clear on this. Chronic work-life imbalance.
Yeah.
It's not just about feeling stressed or a little overwhelmed.
It can actually get pretty serious.
It can. We're talking increased risk of burnout, anxiety, even depression for parents and for kids. Think behavioral problems, trouble in school, and even, difficulty forming healthy emotional attachments.
Okay, so not messing around here. This is some serious stuff. I mean, I think we all know that frazzled feeling when work bleeds into family time or vice versa, but
But it's more than just a feeling, right? It has real-world consequences. And it can be a vicious cycle, too. You're stressed, you're less patient, you snap at your kids, then you feel guilty, and the cycle just continues.
totally. Been there. Okay, so we've established that this is a big deal, but like, what can we do about it? Surely there's got to be some hope here.
There is, I promise. One of the most important things, and this came up in almost every single source we looked at, is the importance of setting realistic expectations.
Okay, I feel like I hear this a lot, but like, what does that actually mean?
It means letting go of the idea that you have to do it all and do it perfectly. That super mom, super dad myth. It's just not sustainable for most people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. No one can be everything to everyone all the time.
Exactly. And it's about, like, being okay with asking for help, delegating tasks, leaning on your support system, prioritizing what truly matters.
Then how do you even figure out what matters most? Because honestly, sometimes it feels like everything is a priority.
Right. That's where some of those practical strategies come in. One that I found really helpful, and this was mentioned in the Overwhelmed Parents Guide, is something called time mapping.
Time mapping, what's that?
So you basically track how you spend your time for like a week. Literally write it down, everything you do. And you might be surprised by what you discover.
Like how much time you actually waste scrolling on your phone.
Could be. Or, it might show you that you're actually spending way less time with your family than you thought. It helps you identify those time sinks and make more conscious choices.
So it's about awareness, like seeing where your time actually goes versus where you think it's going.
Exactly. And that's the first step to being able to make changes.
Okay, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
And what about time management in general? Any like golden nuggets of wisdom on that front?
I think the biggest shift for me was realizing that time management isn't about sticking to some rigid schedule, you know?
Yeah, those never seem to work anyway.
Right. It's more about being mindful and intentional. So maybe instead of aiming for like a perfect family dinner every night, which can be stressful.
Especially if you're trying to get everyone to sit down at the same time and actually eat the food you made.
Exactly. Focus on one tech-free meal a week where everyone's present, actually talking to each other. It's those little rituals done consistently that can have a bigger impact.
I like that. Quality over quantity. Okay, so we've talked about personal strategies, but what about the role of like our workplaces in all of this?
Yeah.
Because let's be real, a lot of the pressure comes from, work demands, expectations, that whole culture.
Absolutely. We can't just put all the responsibility on individuals. Employers have a huge role to play in creating a culture that actually supports work-life balance.
And what does that even look like?
Well, think flexible work arrangements,
Uh-huh.
remote work options, flexible hours, that kind of thing. And it's not just for parents either.
True. Everyone can benefit from having more control over their time, right?
Right. And it can actually be a win-win for both employees and employers. I mean, there was this fascinating case study in one of our sources about a tech company called, I think it was Tech Harmony.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. They had like on-site childcare and unlimited vacation time, right?
Yep. And their employee retention rate, way higher than the industry average.
So it's not just about being nice. These policies can actually make a difference in terms of like attracting and keeping good people.
Exactly. And there are so many other examples. Paid parental leave, childcare assistance, even just a company culture that encourages people to actually take breaks and vacations.
Okay, so those are all great in theory, but what about those of us who, don't have a super supportive workplace, or like maybe we're in a situation where we don't have a partner to share the load?
Yeah, those are really important points. Not everyone has that built-in support system. I think the key in those situations is building your own network.
Really?
Family, friends, community resources, even just knowing you're not alone can make a huge difference.
That's so true. Community is everything. Okay, before we wrap up, we have to talk about technology because honestly, it feels like a double-edged sword, right?
It totally is. On the one hand, it can blur the lines between work and home. You're constantly connected, checking emails at all hours. It's hard to switch off.
And it's not just work emails, right? It's social media, news, like everything is competing for our attention all the time.
Exactly. But on the other hand, technology also enables things like remote work, those flexible schedules we were talking about, and it allows us to stay connected with loved ones who might be far away.
So how do we make it work for us, not against us?
Honestly, it all starts with awareness. Take a look at your tech habits, how they're impacting your family, your own well-being. Maybe it's setting some
Like
boundaries.
no work emails after dinner or having certain tech-free zones in the house.
Exactly. Or maybe it's being more mindful about screen time in general. It's about being intentional with our technology use, just like we talked about being intentional with our time.
So it sounds like there's no magic bullet here. It's not about achieving some perfect balance, but about finding what works for you, right?
Right. It's about making conscious choices, having strategies in place, and being kind to ourselves in the process. We're all just doing the best we can.
Totally.
Yeah,
And, our sources focused a lot on individual strategies, which are super important. But I think it's also worth thinking about the bigger picture.
absolutely. What if we started advocating for more systemic changes?
Hmm.
Policies that truly support families, workplaces that prioritize well-being, even just a cultural shift towards valuing time with loved ones as much as we value productivity.
It's a big question, but it's an important one. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope everyone listening is walking away with some food for thought, some practical tips, and maybe even a little bit of hope.
Me too. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve to have a fulfilling work life and indeed a thriving family life.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us, everyone.